I'm not good with the mirroring situation that happens on these lives. I'm like, what is going on?
Well, I know. I was so confused. I was like, how can I make us better?
I know I'm moving in the right direction.
Where am I? Hey, everybody. We're slightly confused, but delighted to be here with you.
And also together.
In my space this time.
We're in the Pittsburgh HQ, Pittsburgh branch of Abbey Research.
The Pittsburgh branch of Abbey Research.
As Erin's dad calls her house.
My upstairs office in my house. You're very welcome to this Tuesday, July 6th.
Oh my gosh. Happy Independence Day, Malawi.
Happy Independence Day, Malawi. Hooray.
Hooray. 57 years young you are. A former British colony. It'll show up on Colonizers World Tour probably in 22. There's so many British ones to get to, guys.
Like, we could do an entire, like, half a year of British colonies.
Maybe we will next year. There's just so many. Go Pens.
Go Pens. Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, we love the Pens and not so much Tampa Bay Lightning, but we won't get into the hockey today.
You guys can have your own special live, the two of you talking about the NHL.
Jay
sometime.
And I can just do a live, like maybe in preseason. We'll just go live and just
Jay could be our special Canadian hockey correspondent.
Yes, Jay.
We just keep adopting Canadians. It works for us.
Jay, let us know if you want to. We can get you can go full Don Cherry on it and just get a really fancy suit coat and a microphone.
I love it.
And yell aggressively about Canadian hockey. And we will give you the space to do so.
Yeah.
But that's not why we're here today.
Not yet. No. She says that she's laughing so hard. We're so glad to give you joy, Jay.
Wait, I can actually show comment.
Hi!
We're laughing so hard. Bless. We're here to entertain, but we are also here to talk about flags and why people like them so much. Because Sunday in the United States, it was the 4th of July.
It was.
Yesterday was the public holiday for it. We fly a lot of flags on the 4th of July and other days.
And sometimes even at half-mast.
And we would, as two social scientists who've spent a lot of time talking about flags in our time in Northern Ireland.
Flags.
We thought it would be a good time to talk about some bigger ideas of nationalism and identity and symbols and all that jazz. So let's talk about it. Why are flags so important?
But first, we've got some empathy exercises.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about the empathy exercises. You guys, I'm thrown having her next to me. We'll get there. We'll get there, but we've got empathy exercises.
We do.
And they're important. The first one up is the news that broke last week that Bill Cosby will be was released from prison and sent home because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that there was an error in the way he was prosecuted and that they could not lawfully prosecute him the way that they did, thus nullifying the finding of the jury. And, we talked a lot about this as it was happening. Everybody else did too. We wanted to shout it out as an empathy exercise to remind people that there are lots of folks out there who are victims and survivors of all forms of abuse. And many of them don't come forward. Many of them don't talk about it and don't disclose it. So this is a very, very difficult time for folks who are victims and survivors of abuse and assault. And so be kind that you don't know what other people have experienced. You don't know if they are a victim or a survivor. Be empathetic and kind about this and about other things and give people lots of grace because we can imagine that it was a very traumatic day and announcement for all of those folks related to the Cosby case and not who have had a myriad of experiences. So just be kind and give people grace. It was a really horrible thing.
From a lot of different sides. And remember too that the law and morality are two different things. Mm-hmm. And that this is one of the biggest conversations about Do we just have more legislation to end sexual assault, or do we have legislation for hate crimes? What do we do? The law and human morality are two different things. They have to be.
Yeah.
If the law legislated morality, we'd actually all be in trouble, because morality does move person to person. So there's as much neutrality as there can be. That's what the law is supposed to be.
Yeah.
There are people arguing on many, many sides of this, that this was done badly. Many, many sides. The word badly is broadly applied here. And it's the other empathy exercise is a good reminder that the law is complicated.
Yeah.
And that asking somebody to go forward to prosecute their abuser might not be in their best interest. A civil case might be in their best interest, their own personal best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And what that can look like. What is the difference between a prosecutable crime and a crime? And how incredibly frustrating that difference is. As always, shout out to Emily D. Baker, our favorite legal commentator here on the YouTubes, who has been breaking this down pretty eloquently for somebody who can't say the word Cheltenham and does not understand Commonwealth law, which she is very, very clear about, because Commonwealth law is, we're special treasure here in the state of Pennsylvania. Yeah. So that's kind of the Cosby of it all. Moving on to a much happier empathy exercise. We discovered this week through one of my friend's Facebook feeds, and I cannot even remember who, but they shared I'm looking at the screen, the Texas Adaptive Aquatic company.
Yes.
Where essentially these people volunteer their times to water ski with people with different abilities, so that it does not matter what your body can do-ish. It matters that you can enjoy the water.
Yeah.
Cannot encourage you enough to go check out their website that'll be linked below. If you've got some cash, throw it at them. This seems really cool.
Yeah, and as an empathy exercise, it's so important to be aware of how folks with all different types of bodies and abilities and identities do and don't fit in the world as we make it. And that one of the greatest empathy exercises we can all do is try and change that and try and make things adaptive for worlds that weren't built for people that don't function in what society considers to be a normal way. These folks have been around for as long as humans have been around, but we've built this idea of what it means to be quote unquote normal as a way that excludes a lot of people from enjoying life. And so shout out to Texas Adaptive Aquatics for being everyone can have joy. We just have to figure out a way to make it work, and making it work.
Huge, huge fans.
Our third empathy exercise is a very short shout out and a pin for when we cover Hawaii later in the year, when we look at Indigenous experiences during November. For our Colonizers World Tour, we will most certainly be learning more about and discussing Kaunani K. Trask. I will learn how to pronounce her name as well. But she is one of the most significant Hawaiian activists. She's a scholar and a poet. She died on the 3rd of July at the age of 71. So we'll share a link below to Hawaiian News Network covering her life and the importance of understanding Native Hawaiians and how they feel about their identity and their relationship with the United States, and that many of them don't like and or celebrate the 4th of July, along with a lot of other folks. So we wanted to shout that out as a person we should all know more about, and a person that we will certainly be talking more about when we get to Hawaii later this year.
And speaking of how people understand themselves and the 4th of July and how they understand the world around them, we are going to talk about flags.
Let's talk about flags.
To enter you into this conversation, and just as a heads up, Northern Ireland does not actually have an agreed upon flag. And that statement may seem really, really bizarre to you, but they don't. They have I think somewhere around 4 officially sanctioned flags that can be flown. And if you are confused about this, just look at any European golf tournament and see that Rory McIlroy has a different flag next to his name every single time he plays.
Every time he plays.
He has a different accent every time he speaks too, but that's a different rant. But it's because there is no a flag represents a unified narrative of what a nation is. And we'll get into that in a minute. And for nations of which there is no unified narrative, how do you have one flag?
You don't.
Flags, therefore, in Northern Ireland are incredibly contentious, and very emotional. And we have a lot of friends who are experts in flags, and we have had the privilege of learning from them a lot over the years. And so we wanted to bring this to you both from our academic expertise. Dr. Aaron studies symbols a lot. We're going to talk about that. I study communities for a living, so we'll be talking about that from my perspective. But just as kind of a thing, for instance, my husband's an American citizen now, and one of the things that he will absolutely never do is pledge allegiance to any single flag. It was one of the hardest things for him about his citizenship thing because he doesn't understand flags. So because of his Northern Irish baggage. So flags are not nearly as straightforward as we think they are, and we wanted to unpack that. Dr. Aaron.
Yeah.
Talk to us about symbols.
Symbols are important. That's a generic understatement. But I was very fortunate to study under Dr. Dominic Bryan, who is an social anthropologist at the Queen's University Belfast, and taught me a whole bunch of anthropological stuff about why symbols and why rituals. And effectively, humans create symbols and give them meaning and significance so that we can build a sense of identity and cohesiveness around them. They are invented, they change, they don't stay the same even though we think they do. Especially with rituals and symbols, we tend to think like the flag has always been this way, or we've always celebrated the 4th of July this way. A lot of the militarization of American ceremonies is hugely impacted by 9/11, but we talk about it like we've always had the military at sporting events.
No,
we haven't. So symbols and rituals evolve and change, but what they do is they create a sense of cohesiveness and identity that we can have a shorthand and a language about. And the longer a symbol stays around, the more power we give it, the more significance it holds, the more rituals are in a way a bodily performance of a symbol, and they become symbolic. And because we do them with our bodies, they become embedded in who we are. And the more we physically produce that ritual, the more important it becomes, i.e. the pledging of allegiance in American schools is a ritualistic performance of our national identity. And every time we perform that ritual, we consciously or not are doing something that tells us that we're American. And so that's why symbols and rituals are so important to a collective sense of identity. And we can see this on a national scale. You can see it in subgroups everywhere. You think about all the conversations we had during the month of Pride about different pride flags and flags that represent different aspects of the gender and sexuality spectrums. And the importance of representation. And that's another thing symbols and rituals do. They are for the group insider, as we say, the communal insider in academics, but also the communal outsider, because they communicate ideals, special historical events, parts of your identity that you want to reinforce within the group, but also tell everybody, hey, this is who we are. Look, we have this symbol and we do this all the time. And now you understand us too. So the problem is they can be reductivist, like they can reduce cultures and people and identities to very basic concepts. They do that on purpose so that they're easily understandable, but they're also makes them harder to critique or deconstruct, especially within nationalism, because the more power you give something and the more you exalt a symbol or a ritual, we have a concept in academia we like to call reification, which means you basically give it God-like status, religious-like status.
Yeah, which means it can never be corrected. It can't ever be questioned even.
It can't be changed or challenged. And so a really good example of this in terms of American nationalism is the idea of protesting the national anthem.
Yeah.
where that's something we've actually been doing for a long time. The history goes all the way back to the 1930s and Jesse Owens in the Olympics. It's a very American thing, in fact, to protest symbols. Yeah. But we have created a national narrative that says something very differently. And we've reified the national anthem to a level that you can't challenge it, you can't change it, you can't criticize it and say, hey, it comes from kind of a racist part of history and it might be a racist song. All of those things become really complicated once a symbol or a ritual has reached that elevated status, especially within nationalism, which is a difficult concept, but an important one, and one we're going to unpack. Dr. Kristen, why nationalism? What is nationalism? Why do we care? What are nations?
So sorry to maybe blow your minds. Nations are ideas. That's it. They're just ideas. And there might be legal boundaries to those ideas. There might be a whole lot of other things. But in terms of what does it mean, let's just take America because it's one of the ones that we are the most familiar with.
We know it quite well.
What does it mean to be American? What is America? So on the 4th of July, we celebrate the national narrative to celebrate the 4th of July is that a group of scrappy farmers got sick of paying taxes for things in a system they were not represented in, said, screw this, we're done.
Yeah.
Fought a war. The Battle of Yorktown opened up a big old can of whoop ass on the British forces. And then since then have become glorious and independent.
Yeah,
and on July 4th, 1776, somebody stood on the steps of the Independence Hall in Philadelphia and read out the immortal words, we believe that all men are created equal and therefore are endowed by their creator, blah, 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 blah. Essentially, King George, go screw yourself. We got this from here. There is truth in that. That is elements of what happened. It is not even close to the whole truth. But nations are built on things that are partially true that we turned into fully true. Families are built on this too, by the way. Human identities are built on this. We have a very interesting relationship with truth as people. But if you get a bunch of folks together and tell them the same story over and over and over again, it will become part of how they see the world. So part of what we tell American school children is that America's great and has been forever. And that we were, that there was nobody here before we got here. So it doesn't really matter that, and the folks, there was maybe only Indians in like the West and in Massachusetts. Like those were the only places that there were Indians. So there's all these kind of complicated things that aren't necessarily true. But what a nation is, what America is an idea. Now, celebrating, and we can talk about this, and I know a lot of Canadian citizens have been wrestling with what Canada is in terms of how Canada has discovered so many mass graves recently. Obviously, there's lots of conversations around what does it mean to be British, around Brexit, lots of conversations about what does it mean to be Ireland when they rewrote the Constitution to allow for abortion and for gay marriage. There's lots and lots of this is why you always get these conversations. Well, if you allow gay marriage, then that isn't what it means to be Irish anymore.
Right.
Okay. But because actually nationalism is just an idea, we can keep rewriting it.
We can change it all the time. Yeah.
But when we take this thing of it's just a story we tell ourselves, combine it with symbols and rituals that we then cement the idea of nationalism, it doesn't allow things to move. So one of my favorite things that Dr. King gave us was an idea of an imagined community, a beloved community, in that we can work together as people and welcome everybody. And then a really great theorist named Benedict Anderson said, yeah, but all communities are imagined. Like all of them are just ideas that we kind of have together. And so that's what community is, a group of people doing life together, whether they like it or not, in a lot of ways, and doing the work to do life together. And a nation is an imagined community that is continually perpetuated by these rituals and stories and symbols. So why do we care about flags? Because it's the shorthand for who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the shorthand for what we value. And it's the shorthand for national identity and national pride. It's the visual shorthand. And humans love visual shorthands. It's why logos are so powerful in capitalism. We love visual shorthands.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk to athletes who talk about carrying your nation's flag out into the Olympics or wearing your nation's flag, one of our favorite movies, Miracle, talks about who's on the front of your jersey is a whole lot more important than who's on the back. And that was the flag of the old United States. So, and when you listen to people talk about flags, they are symbolic themselves. The red of the blood of the martyrs, the white of the purity, the green sky of the, it's a lot of that. Actually, we were just very recently talking about Brazil and our colonizers world tour. And one of the videos I watched was like, so what you'll hear is the flag represents this. That's not actually true. If you look at what they did, the flag is this. And that's a lot. So so if you stop somebody on the street who knows, they'll give you this gorgeous narrative. And then you look at the history books of when they voted on it. And it's like, now we just ran out of yellow fabric. Like, it's also this kind of stuff. So why do people care about flags? Because they care about their nation. And whether they care about it positively or negatively, they still care about it.
Yeah, and the important thing about symbols is that they are this visual representation, but we also imbue them with so much meaning and so much emotions. And one of the things that we talk about all the time, a popular narrative right now in politics anywhere, is that, I don't put politics in that. Take the politics out of this. I don't want politics in my Sports is a common one. That was the argument over protesting the national anthem in the first place, and what Colin Kaepernick started those many years ago.
Were we ever once so young? We were babies back then. But the primary argument against what he was doing was I don't want politics in my football. All things are political because any group of humans, but especially a nation and how we identify as a nation, which football is part of it, is a political idea. Now, partisan politics don't belong on a football game. Like if Colin Kaepernick was kneeling wearing an election campaign shirt, that would be potentially more of an issue. This is why the Johnson Amendment does not allow you to speak partisan politics from a pulpit in the United States, or you lose your tax-exempt status. But to say that churches can't be political is a lie, because everything is political. They just cannot be partisan.
Everything is political all the time.
Yeah.
And this is one of our rallying cries from the good doctors, that we are just constantly chanting that at any sort of media that is trying to tell us that we can take politics out of it.
You can take partisanship out. You cannot take politics out.
And so that's a huge part of understanding also why identities are so important, and the symbols and the rituals that go along with them, because they're embedded in a political ideology as well. And they can mean different things, and they certainly do. And across the political spectrum in the United States, you will hear people talk about the flag differently or other symbols differently. But we still understand it as a visual and emotional representation of what it means to be an American. And so that's why people care about them. That's why they're burned. That's why they're flown. That's why they're folded in a certain way when a U.S. service person dies.
That's why they're flown at half-mast when somebody important dies.
All of this is why of flags. And, we love the real big flags in America, but we are certainly not the only country that loves flags at all. We have a bit of an obsession with them, especially on car dealerships. My Irish friends were just like, why car dealerships?
But the British really love wearing the Union Jack as clothing around even more to a certain extent than we do. We don't wear the American flag as much as they do. I haven't seen as many American flag masks as I have seen Union Jack masks.
Yeah, and
we
won't even get into the poppy of it all.
Oh no,
we don't have time to deconstruct the symbolism of the poppy.
Maybe in November.
November we'll do a poppy watch GDD. Poppy watch. Our friends in Canada will also understand the poppy references, because that is still something they can't escape
But it's also then shorthand for people who don't belong in a certain place.
Yeah.
It's actually, I've spoken to many immigrants that see the American flag as a really positive thing, because it's like, oh, everybody's here and I can wrap myself in it in America. And I've spoken to immigrants that never want to see the American flag in their lives at all. And it's a very wildly different thing. But in places where there are multiple flags for multiple communities, multiple political parties around the world, a lot of political parties have flags.
Yeah.
Especially in sub-Saharan Africa, lots of political parties have flags. And you fly that to kind of say, this is who I belong, this is who I believe in, this is who I am. And if you don't agree with me, you're maybe not welcome here.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot of political candidate flags before Donald Trump, but he definitely sold a lot of flags, and you see them flown around the American countryside now, and on people's houses. I don't remember other candidates having flags to the extent that Trump does.
Posters, but not flags.
Not flags to the extent.
That's interesting.
But like when I was in India, there was flags for political candidates. And speaking of Malawi, I've seen political candidates on flags in Malawi as well, and fabric, dresses. People wear political candidates as dresses in Malawi, which is like a whole other conversation about symbolism. But flags are a statement of what, as for me and my house, we serve. As for me and my house, this is what we value. And sometimes they're fun. Like, as for me and my house, we celebrate Easter. Look, here's a flag with a bunny on it.
Yeah.
And as for me and my house, we are Irish immigrants. So here's the tricolor flying outside. But they are deeply, deeply, deeply emotional.
Mm-hmm. And I think the point that Dr. Kristen made that's so important, because they help you identify where you belong, but they are also, and they communicate to communal outsiders as well. But it is can be a very othering thing. Yeah. Like, flags can be very unifying, and you can have a sense of collectivity and community and belonging. I think a lot of people feel that way with the rainbow flag that is used for Pride. Like, that is a symbol that for a lot of people is very welcoming, but for people who are maybe homophobic or transphobic, they see it as in a different way, and they will see it as excluding people. And so there's always a sense of in and out groups as well with symbols, which is really important to remember.
Great, excellent point.
And a way that, another part of our argument that you can't ever take the politics out of symbols, because they are about identifying groups, who belongs and who doesn't.
Yep.
And, find me a flag that includes everybody. And we don't have one.
Yeah, because the LGBTQ flag keeps evolving, and now there's colors for trans, and there's colors for, like, there's no colors for allies. Like, there's no, and it doesn't need to be, but it can't include all humans. Nothing can include all of us.
That's not how humans actually work.
Symbols can't include all of us.
That's not how symbols actually work.
No, they can't work that way. So wherever you are watching this, whenever you are watching this, hello, replay crew.
Hey, replay crew.
If you've got other questions about other symbols, or you've got other examples of other symbols, especially fabric ones fascinate me, to be completely honest. And Dr. Erin does a lot with handicrafts, so she loves hearing about identity built through handicrafts. We love symbols. We love talking about them and identifying them, and we'd love to talk to you more about them. If you are joining us for the first time, please like and subscribe. The thumbs up on YouTube may seem really strange, but I swear to God, that algorithm is just obsessed with them, and so we'd really appreciate it. If you are watching this because somebody shared it with you on Facebook, please like our Facebook page. We do this every week, Tuesday at 3 p.m. And we will remind everybody watching us on YouTube as well. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we will be doing a separate video on the women of Game of Thrones, plus Jaime Lannister, and
maybe some Tyrion references.
Probably some Tyrion references. Talking about gender politics and story arcs in the show Game of Thrones, which has been requested many times, and we will be happy to film it once we hit 1,000 subscribers. Once we hit 1,500, maybe we'll start dyeing our hair crazy colors or something.
I don't know. We'll come up with things. We're working towards 1,000 first.
Working towards 1,000 right now, and we'd love to talk about Game of Thrones with 1,000 of you and more. So please subscribe and get your friends to do it too. And I think that's all. The time links
Timestamps.
Timestamps. There we go. The chapter stamps will be below. I can't remember what YouTube calls them on any given day.
I don't know either.
And they will be below. Oh my gosh. How did I forget to announce that we have
Y'all.
a podcast?
A podcast.
We're not just on the YouTubes and on the Facebooks anymore. We're in your ear holes.
We can be in the ear holes too.
So as you listen to this, we are in the process of finalizing details and asking Apple to do Apple magic and a whole lot of other things. Our incredible editor, Eleanor, is working overtime to get everything ready. But as of July the 12th, for sure, the Culture Cast will be everywhere that you listen to podcasts. So says our podcast service. But it will definitely be on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, all of those. So there will be links everywhere. We will be once again asking you to subscribe there as well. And there will be this content on the Good Doctors Diagnose will be part of the Culture Cast content as well.
That's right. So probably a week to 2 weeks after we do the live, it will air as a podcast episode. We are going to start right now, encouraging you to, if you listen on the replay, and you want to ask us a question, make sure and comment below either on Facebook or YouTube or DM us on social media. If you have a question that we didn't get to in the live, if you didn't catch the live, we will have a Q&A session in these Good Doctors Diagnose podcasts where we will answer your questions that you have left for us.
We love talking with you as always. We love helping you understand the world as you help us understand the world better, and we all figure out how to human just a little bit better together. But that's all for us for Tuesday, July 6th. We will see you later.
Take care, everybody. I was trying to bring up what we're doing next week, and Trello won't load, so.
Oh, boo.